Dune Prophecy, Episode 2, titled Two Wolves. Boys, we have a full squad today. And I know I got called out for not introducing ourselves on the last podcast, so I'm going to give an introduction here. I'm Luke, and with me, I have two of the Bingetown TV hosts. You may not recognize us from other episodes, but we have Kyle here and Paul, who wasn't on the first Dune Prophecy podcast, but he is here to round us out for which I am now realizing is only 6 episodes. I thought it was going to be a longer season, but we really only have 5 more to go. But today we're going to be talking about episode 2, and there's a lot to break down, but I want to pass it over to Paul to give your initial thoughts about your connection to Dune as a whole and what you thought about quickly episode 1 into episode 2, and we'll take it from there.
So I am the most casual watcher out of the three of us, meaning I saw both movies, Dune 1, Dune 2, and then I didn't do any research, right? We just talked about it, loved it. So there are some terms that were in the movies that I'm not even 100% familiar with because, like I said, casual watcher one time, still loved it. So this show has been such a joy just adding all of that background and backstory, just building the world, right? Because that's the best part. It's a new world that we get to throw ourselves into. That being said, my God, it is a chore to take notes. It is just info dump conversation, info dump conversation, info dump conversation. So it's still setting the groundwork. I could see how that could frustrate a few people watching it, being like, what the hell's going on? But it's had incredible scenes saying that, you don't need to know 100% of everything going on to know that, holy shit, Desmond is one bad mofo, right? Like he just radiates off the screen already. So I edited the first podcast, so I know all the conversations you guys had. Might ask questions for clarification.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, I am the most casual, but since saying all that, man, I really, really, really liked episode 2. I'm starting to get more of the characters, who they are, what they stand for. You got some characters button heads now. It's hard for me to keep up where we are sometimes, but when I see that certain characters on screen, I just know that this is going to be a great conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, the thing you're saying about the exposition dump stuff, I was reading people with negative feedback on the show in this episode, and that's what pretty much it all boiled down to, was that it felt like they were just slamming us over the head with just like information in the least delicate way possible, which I don't know. I mean, for me, I don't think I caught on to it so much until I literally read people say that, and then like as I rewatched the second time, I was like, oh, okay, I can see you saying that. But yeah, that the combination of those two things, where there is like all of this stuff they feel like they have to say, but then we're only 6 episodes, so I'm hoping they're like getting all of that out of their system almost in these first 2 episodes, where it's like a sprint to give us this info, which then the next 4 we can kind of like coast rather on the plot line and the characters, more so than all of this like actual information about everything that's happening. So I would agree with you, Paul.
Yeah, you guys said it better than I was about to, because that was going to be my cue up. Is I can totally see where the complaints are if you are a very, very casual, even so far as to say, like, if you never watched the Dune movies and you kind of just went into this seeing that it was a big HBO production for one of the biggest names in the sci-fi book history, it's definitely a lot. And I am the target audience for this, though, where because I have that peripheral knowledge of the Dune universe, I love the info dumps. I actually really look forward to it, just to see how they're trying to contextualize what's to come. But I can definitely see that being like a critique, because right now on IMDb, the first episode settled in at like a 7.5. This one is at an 8.1. It'll probably come down a little bit, but either way, like 7.5 and above is usually pretty good TV, no matter where you're coming from. And it's HBO. So like the production quality is always going to be there. They're always going to have the good actors and all that. So yeah, this is definitely a show for the more Dune diehards, especially because it's probably kind of, just by definition of what the show is, can't have any impact to the future of the Dune movies, because we already know where Dune 1 starts, which makes us kind of put into a little bit of a box. So hopefully if you're still listening to it at this point, like listening to our podcast, you are like a big Dune fan, so you can keep up with some of the terminology and the different factions at work here and the different planets and all that goes along with being sci-fi. And if you can, like, I'm sure you'll enjoy it, because for knowing what's going on, like, I feel like I'm really enjoying everything that they're giving us with all of the Desmond stuff and whatever his powers and connection to the worms is. Like, that's all completely new, so there is still new stuff for the diehards, as well as connecting more lore about the Atreides and like what route they're going to go on with the Carinos and the Emperor. So there's a lot of fun to break down. I think I'm still going to enjoy it, but I am a little hesitant to just blast this out to every person that I know, just blindly saying watch this show. But for the people that I know enjoy this type of genre, I think that we're on a good start through 2 episodes. So yeah, I'm ready to break it down. Do you guys have any other comments you want to put out there, Paul? Any questions before we start? Because then, other than that, we're just going to break it down by the 2 different planets as the main settings.
My last general
Yeah.
thought will just be that I think that 7.5-ish rating is very reasonable. I think I would agree. It doesn't feel like it's hitting those highs of like the upper echelon HBO shows, but it's not like it's a bad television show yet.
Right. Yeah.
You mentioned it, Luke, the production quality. I think it almost gets overlooked how incredible some of these shots are of the architecture. You guys talked about it in the first episode. Like the architecture is so unique. It's so just the landscape shots going over all the worlds, like the ships, just Star Wars-esque coming out of like the mothership, like dropping down onto the planet. I think those easily get overlooked, and I think they're some of the best parts because they just dump you right into the world and you feel like you're there. So I like the world building in every faction, not just the info dumps.
Right. Good. We're going to start going through the
Yeah.
episode now. So yeah, just like you said, like they keep expanding what we know about each of these worlds, and like more plans are moving within each world. So that's always fun. But we're going to start on the home world of the Sisterhood, Wallach 9. And I think after they went through this episode, I'll call out when it actually happens, but there is a scene where they basically go through all the different factions, and they're still saying sisterhood, but they are dropping the term Reverend Mother, which we usually connect to the Bene Gesserit. But I think there might be a moment in this series where they establish themselves as the Bene Gesserit, because it seems like they're going too out of their way not to use that term. Can I just start there? Like, do you guys also notice that the lack of using that word?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
They would have
cool.
said it already, right? I mean,
Exactly. They keep saying sisterhood, but they did kind of clarify, and maybe we should have caught this from the first episode, but you do start as an acolyte before you go through the agony test into becoming the Reverend Mother. And the agony test, also off the rip, which is just amazing connection to the movies, is just the taking of the holy water, which is the blood of the worm. So like all of this is good connections to the movie, and I'm sure like that's like things that you're supposed to pick up on, but it's cool to see the early states of this all, because this whole plot line, and we can just start talking about it now. It starts with the direct aftermath of episode 1, where we have Valia trying to deal with the fallout of having Kasha killed, and what this means for Pruitt having have died as the betrothed to their plan, which was to have Pruitt marry Nez into putting a sister or future sister on the throne. So all of that gets shaken up, and she has to pick up the pieces with her sister Tula. So there's a lot to talk about here, but basically the main plan is going to be to have one of the acolytes in training, Lila, who is Tula's favorite. She's going to go through this process of the agony super early, just so they can basically connect her to her bloodline, which we find out later is she was a direct descendant of Raquel the First, Mother Superior. I just talked a lot, and that pretty much sums up the entire Wallach 9 storyline, but let's just start talking about it in pieces of whatever quotes or specific scenes or questions that you guys want to bring up.
One thing I want to mention is we talked about it on the first episode, so last episode, in that we could see this kind of rift / civil war, almost civil war being the most extreme outcome of this in the sisterhood. And I feel like this episode did nothing but make me believe that that's actually like 100% what's going to happen. I feel like everything that happened in this episode makes me believe that Tula is going to like split away from her sister and put this like she's going to represent the more like empathetic version of the sisterhood. Maybe not exactly like Raquel's daughter, who was killed in the first episode, which we get the flashback of that. And this episode as well. It just seems like they're really positioning the sisterhood to be split in this way, and just everything that happened to Tulla this episode, especially even from the start when she has the conversation with Valia, where she's like, oh, like, you don't trust me while you're gone. And, and Valia even kind of admits, like, yeah, hard decisions
Mhm.
are going to be made. And maybe Tulla's not really known for those hard decisions. And it feels like I'm almost thinking that you could have convinced me halfway through the episode that it would have been like Tulla and Lila on one side, and then is Valia and Theodosia on the other side. And I feel like now it's going to be Tulla and Jen. Jen's a little bit of a wild card. I don't know how much she is going to like buy into the vision of Tulla. She seems like she wants power more than she wants like the mission type of thing. But
That's interesting you said that because I almost took it as I thought there was a chance that Dorothea, is that her name? Dorothea, who dies in episode 1?
yeah,
Yeah, I thought she was going to permanently take over Lila's body and basically have a rebellion from the inside out. But now, so how you're kind of like forming up the sides of the people that believe in, I guess in Raquel's actual vision versus how Valya's interpreting it, and then having them go to war. I almost took it as Dorothea is going to be like an enemy from the other side, but I don't know how much interaction she can have with the living if it needs to come through the agony test, because that her whole doorway in is gone now because I
yeah,
think she just killed her great granddaughter. But it definitely could go the way that you just described it. I'm in for either way because I want some more internal fighting of the sisters rather than it being straightforward, because it's just too boring if it goes that way. But they definitely queued it up to being a huge rift. Paul, what did you think about like the sides forming? Is that how you kind of predicted going the way Kyle was describing it?
I honestly like didn't really. I thought the sides were kind of done after young Valia used the voice to kill Raquel's granddaughter, granddaughter,
Great
granddaughter,
granddaughter.
granddaughter.
great granddaughter.
Yeah.
But once you guys started kind of breaking it down, I could see, of course, in this sisterhood, there's going to have differing views and opinions. And I think Tulla, with the loss of what she acted like was her daughter, she even said, I pretended you were my daughter. That
Hmm.
could be the catalyst that really starts her going against Valia, because all Valia wants is obedience. Do as you're told. And Tulla just does that, but this might be what pushes her over the edge, especially the conversation that they had right before Valia left. She's saying, we're going to use Lila, and Tulla, right before they separate, says there are secrets we have gone to great lengths to hide, and the agony will expose her to that. So,
Hmm.
without jumping all the way to the agony, Lila's looking for her mother, and Raquel says, "Oh, is that what they told you? She's not here." So I'm thinking that's definitely one of the secrets that they were lying about. Tula lied to Lila, I assume, saying, your mother died giving childbirth.
Hmm.
I took that as one of the secrets they're trying to hide. And with Raquel speaking through Lila and telling Tula this, Tula might be like, "Oh my God, everything we have done is going to come to light. We need to repent." And that might further the rift because she sees Raquel bringing back their history and the secrets and everything they've hidden. So I could easily see Tula being the opposite side of Valia.
What team are you?
I don't know. I don't really like Valia. Like
Right.
she's
She's a
she's
Harkonnen, bro. We
cool.
don't have to.
She's
So is
cool and
Tulla.
powerful. Yeah, yeah, right? Jury's still out. But I don't know. Like I was thinking about that when I was watching episode 2. I was like, who am I rooting for right now?
Hmm.
Right?
Hmm.
Because the one Atreides that we got turns out he's actually like slight traitor. So and of course we just say that because it's Atreides and we're like fucking ready to go. Like,
Yeah.
come on, are you
Oh
kidding
yeah.
me? So I'm still looking for who I'm rooting for because I don't really know.
Yeah,
Hmm.
I think that's one of the more interesting things going into episode 3 is how Tulla, like, what is Tulla gonna latch onto? What is gonna be what she feeds her like emotion and thought into? Is it gonna be this grief and this loss, or is she gonna kind of push that aside and focus more on the words that Lila says with this? The she says whatever she ends up once born.
I have do you want me to read it? I got the whole quote here.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so like as the whole agony starts, what she ends up saying or prophesizing is the key to the reckoning is one born twice, once in blood, once in spice, a revenant full of scars, a weapon of war with a path too short. Paul Atreides, right? Is
Oh,
because
that's not bad.
we're still having that. I'm having an internal dialogue right now about basically Tyrion Arafel. Is that a threat to the sisterhood that will break their influence that's going to happen in their lifetime? Or is this just a broad stroke for the whole Dune universe prophesizing Paul Atreides 10,000 years in the future, and there isn't actually a threat to them besides themselves and their internal politic on what to do? Is that what the show's going to be about? Or are they going to manufacture a threat that we don't really know about besides its name and then have us deal with that over the next four episodes? I almost want to keep thinking back to the idea that it is about Paul Atreides and they're going to shape that prophecy to be like a positive thing by episode 6, so that skip ahead 10,000 years, the Bene Gesserit have this plan to mold and push Paul into the direction that they want. That's where I'm at, but I could be completely wrong. And there literally could be a looming threat that happens like starting next episode.
Yeah, it's almost too nail on the head of Desmond Hart.
As
Like,
the
that
problem.
literally
That actually
describes
works
him.
really well. Yeah, no,
Like, he
you're
was
absolutely
born
right.
to a human mother, let's say, being born once in blood, and then once in spice is him being swallowed by Shai Hulud, a revenant of scars. I mean, he has the scars on his face. If a revenant is essentially talking about someone who's been resurrected in some way, he kind of almost claims that he died, so a weapon born of war. He keeps leaning on how much of a soldier he is. So it's just, is that
No,
the,
that's a good point. That's a good point.
I don't know if that's necessarily categorized as a red herring, but I could see almost both of those things being true, where maybe the show itself, that's about Paul Atreides, but the sisters are going to take it as Desmond. Because if you
I like
think
it.
what does Sherlock say? Like, usually
The
like the
simplest.
easiest,
Yeah,
the simplest thing
Hawkins
is the right answer. I just feel like when I'm trying to think about what's going to happen next, it almost seems too obvious that Mother Superior goes back. Tulla tells her what Lila said, and Mother Superior saw Desmond, so she's like, okay, it's Desmond. Like, Desmond is the thing that we're trying to fight against.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they'll 100% bite and dive into that.
But is that
And
what you did?
yeah.
What if you had to put a guess on the board at the end of the series? Like, are we going to say they're on the other side of the threat, or is this actually about Paul? Not you, Paul. Other Paul. Real Paul.
I'm gonna say it's not gonna be about Paul. That's gonna be my guess.
Okay. No, I like it.
I could easily see both sides, and I was thinking, it's about Paul. That's the whole thing. Is like you're saying, born again in spice. That could easily be Paul. The Revenant of Scars. That could have just been his backstory from watching his whole house fall to landing on Arrakis, and like that, the scars were the everything emotional that happened with the deaths of his family and everything. But this whole time I'm thinking they're saying the reckoning's upon them. Like, Valia is freaking out, right? So it seems a little weird for the reckoning to be upon them if Paul Atreides is 10,000 years in the future. So I want to say that there is the stepping stone in between Paul but I do believe that this prophecy that they're saying is all about Atreides. So I don't know. I feel like
No,
they're
that
building up like
I,
this is the very beginning, first stone falling for that prophecy, and they're trying to take care of it right as it rears its head or something. I don't know.
I think that's good writing to make it ambiguous, and maybe we will get an explicit answer, maybe we won't, but I think it works both
Yeah.
in broad strokes and in the finer details of these 6 episodes that we're gonna get. I think it's actually genius, and, like, you convinced me into that, your explanation, because I was thinking too big, and I should have been thinking more about what they're presenting us, like, because if a casual viewer comes in watching this, they're definitely gonna agree with Kyle that Desmond is the problem, but who knows? So that's fun, I actually like that. So we're gonna probably keep bringing that up constantly as the sisters deal with this prophecy, because like I said, like Dorothea spouts this out through Lila, and everybody hears it, like all of the acolytes in the room. So they're going to react to this in their own separate ways, which could cause that rift. And that's going to be really fun to see. I'm also going to pose the question to you guys. Is that the last we see of Dorothea? Did she get her revenge? Did she, and then she's done? Or will she still have a part to play? Because I was pleasantly surprised at how, like, horrifying that scene was. And it made so much sense when it all clicked that it was going to be her and not Lila's mother. So I thought that was like a really well done scene because I didn't see it coming at all. But do you think she'll be back as a threat, or did she play her whole part?
I'm gonna say she's done. The only possible curveball would be Lila's mother somehow also going through the, what do they call it again?
The
Genetic
agony.
The
memory?
agony.
Oh, the agony.
Yeah, well, both of those answers actually do work. So I'm gonna say that she's done. I almost want to say that the point of that is to get Tulla like in this almost like paranoia state where she's distrusting of Valia. She doesn't really know where she stands. Looking back on all the things that they've done, is it actually the right choice? And that's how I hope it goes. I don't know if it'll go as far as this, but I could see the possibility that this Tyr and Arafel, we know that they haven't directly translated it to us, but more of this kind of this apocalyptic of due to tyranny, some devastation due to tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, is it crazy to make the jump to like Valia's way of ruling the sisterhood can be interpreted as like her tyrannical nature
So
is
wouldn't that
what's
be
going
like
to
a
lead the sisterhood to doom? I don't know. It's almost like the self-fulfilling
yes,
prophecy where like
yes.
Raquella is telling them that this might happen, and the news of that is what makes it happen essentially because they're trying to prevent it, and by preventing it, they're ensuring it.
That's exactly where I was going to go. That's well said. I don't even have a comment because I think
Yeah.
that could be a path forward for what's going to happen with Valia's character. But before we leave this planet, I am just going to bring it up because I love when Dune does this. The number one rule of the Dune world is no magic, meaning we should get an actual answer for what Desmond's power ends up being. But it was really cool when they explained how the sisters deal with the poison, which is like the water of life that we get from the movies, where they're breaking it down on like a biological molecule level so that it doesn't actually hurt them. I just love when they talk about that because that's like the basis of the Dune books. There is no magic. There's always an actual answer for things. So it's cool that they touched on that.
And you said that the agony, the poison, you're saying that it's the worm blood, the worm juice, the blue goo.
I'm assuming.
But yeah, I just don't, because she was like, I feel like she was crafting it on her own.
I think
Yeah,
it's
I
just
just
a
don't
very
know.
primal version of what they end up getting in the future because they drink it on Arrakis and here they're dropping it
Yeah.
into their eye, but it is still the blue color, and they're very aware of Shylod and like how like special the qualities of the worms are. So I mean, it would be
Yeah, I don't know.
to me, it's just cooler showing it as a primal version, but it could be a completely separate thing. I just don't see the benefit of adding like a whole new concept with no build up to it besides the agony. So I'm gonna go with it being the holy water until I see, or the water of life. I keep doing that.
Yeah.
I always do that, but it's the water of life. So I'm gonna go with that until I see more. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, they very, at least to me, it seemed very purposefully the scene of I guess spoiler alert for Dune 2 of Jessica taking the water of life
yeah,
with the interaction of the blue and the blood. It was almost pulled exactly from the movie into what we saw here. So they're trying to make that connection. I was just
exactly.
more curious, just because she's like snipping the moss off the stones near whatever that pool that's been there since the beginning, of the show. So I
Yeah, who
wasn't sure
knows?
if that will get explained more. But I almost really bring that up because this is my last comment on the planet. Because if we're gonna leave,
Mhm.
all the whispering that was
Dude,
happening
my question.
while she was doing
That was
that, it was
Amazing.
kind of continuing, and then it was also happening to Valia. So maybe this is the segue onto Segundus Seleucus or Seleucus Segundus, where it was happening to Valia too. So I'm not entirely sure what that will be about, but I got my eye on it. I guess my ear. I got my
That
ear on it.
was my question towards you guys. I was going to be like, what is the whispering motif that we hear? And it's not only Valia, like you said, it was Tulla, like there. And I guess I'm going to have to pay attention, but I felt like there was other. I don't think there was acolytes that heard whispering, but there was other mothers, I think. So
That could be
I
a
wonder
thing.
what that is. Is that just like is that constant? They always hear that, and they're just letting us kind of feel what they're always sensing, or do those whispers just pop up every once in a while and then have a meaning? So I wonder if it's like whispers towards the prophecy, if something that they talked about in the prophecy, they're working towards it, then the whispers are there trying to either push them away from it or push them towards it to do the act, the self-fulfilling prophecy like you're talking about. So
Well, now I'll
would
be
be
paying
interesting.
attention to it. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And now, like my actual final thing, because I mentioned a little earlier rather, I'm just gonna put this on the board just for the fun of making predictions with no emotional investment, whether it's correct or not. I think Theodosia and Jen are gonna fight, and one of them's gonna kill the other one by the end of the season.
But you
And
got to take
Jen.
it a step farther. Who's going to win?
Jen, let me get Jen.
Jen's
Now let me
crazy.
get I think Theodosia's gonna win.
It's a
They're
cool
on
name.
separate
Jen's too
planets,
emotional
right? They're on separate
Hmm?
planets right now.
right
Yeah.
now. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
Because
because I'm buying into the sisterhood split theory, and I think they're going to battle for the soul of the sisterhood and the future of the mission, and it's going to be Theodosia and Jen are going to fight.
Because Paul Theodosia goes with Valia as her recruit to basically replace Kasha and then almost become like the angel on Nez's shoulder just to keep the influence on her as the future sister that'll be on the throne. So that's pretty much her role here. Are we ready to just go to Seleucus Segundus? You had it right the second time, Kyle. So the Emperor's current planet, and it was pointed out to me, and I did know this. I don't think I called this out on the first podcast episode, but this is actually the planet that ends up being like the Imperial prison planet where all of the like the special soldiers of the Emperor train and live. You remember where they're doing like the throat talking in the Dune
Oh
movies,
yeah,
where they
classic.
get all Asadu cars, something like
Yeah,
that. That's like the
Sardaukar.
yes, yeah, that's like their home planet in the future. So I don't know if that means we'll get to see a sort of transition into a new planet being where the Emperor ends up posting up or not. It could just be so far in the future that doesn't matter. But it's a little nod to the movies. But anyway, so on Seleucus Segundus, we're going to cover these first two scenes because this is really just like the preamble of the whole rest of the world and the bucket that we're going to go through now. But we basically just have the direct aftermath of Pruitt's dead body and the royals talking basically about it, right? And then we're also going to loop in the confrontation that Desmond and the Emperor have before the Emperor gives the arrest order. So just like these first two quick scenes, there's probably nothing there, but I just want to give you guys a chance if you want to throw anything out there because it's just about them blaming the death of Pruitt on the thinking machine, which was just like the obvious scapegoat. It was like the little lizard thing, right? But the Emperor finds out right away because Desmond just basically admits, I did it. Like it was me. I'll kill for you again if you want me to.
Can you remind me of Queen Carino's name?
We just call him the Emperor and then the Empress is pretty much how I've been
I
doing
think it was
Empress.
Natalia because it was
Natalia is the
screwing us
girl's
up.
name. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Never
I'm just
mind then.
calling her Calanthe, just from The Witcher. You guys talked about
That's
it. Episode.
yeah.
Every one of my notes is just Calanthe does this. So she was like straight up blaming the machines before anything else, went down. Anything else came out. I know she freaked out episode 1, but that's like done, right? Like I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. I felt like her fear of the machines was just going to be a constant character trait of her like wanting to use Desmond as an attack, but like I guess she does look at the Richezes as machine lovers, right? So she wants to get rid of them. So I guess that is coming into play. I
Mhm.
I, I don't know. I
Yeah.
thought it was so weird how she blamed the toys. She was like, "We don't know what they're capable of."
I think I think she's a straight gamer. I think she's a straight game player. She was anti the marriage because she knows that if the marriage went through, then Nez goes away and is part of the sisterhood for 10 years. So even more now, looking back, I think she was maybe even trying to use that as pretext to be like, oh, the marriage should be called off. Like she was trying to almost get her husband to push down or to put some harsh consequences on the Richezes, which did not happen, obviously. But I thought she was great this episode. She might have had the best episode. I think every scene, you could just, the gears were turning for her, the wheels were turning. She thinks the Emperor just kind of exists. There's a comma in there. She thinks, the Emperor just kind of exists. He's almost like a sponge that just or maybe a chameleon's not the right word. I don't even know, but she just actually thinks things through and like is able to like connect context of things and understands the way power works. While he just doesn't really. He has a very basic, almost like moralistic, like, is this a good thing? Is this the bad thing type of way of thinking? So she was just great this episode.
She is the one to watch. This episode convinced me that he is basically just going to be a figurehead. I think she's going to be pulling all the strings because she's going to be the one that gets them to use Desmond as the weapon. She already kind of does that towards the end of the episode, using what little influence she has. But we got to remember that last episode, the Emperor and the Empress have this conversation where it's very heavily implied that he no longer trusts her anymore, and like he didn't look back on their relationship as fondly as she might be. And I'm starting to think that maybe she has a history of overstepping and trying to pull too much power behind the Emperor, and maybe it caused an actual issue in the past. But I do think by the end of the day, like at the end of the day, she's going to be the one that matters. And I almost hope it goes that way because that would be such a little twist, and it would be the biggest obstacle for the sisterhood to just take over because she's so willing to use Desmond. And we know Desmond's number one thing is that he's very faithful and anti the sisterhood. So whatever that actually means, we know that there's going to be a rift there. And I think Empress Natalia is going to be the one really pulling the strings. I could almost even see Carino, the main emperor, dying like an early death, like almost next episode, because he just seems like a doormat almost, like for everybody around him. And I don't necessarily think he's going to be, because he was the one that believed in the sisters and he wished Kasha was around. And I think that's going to be a problem for everybody else around him now that we've taken that step forward and we actually are drawing blood with the power of Desmond. So I really like how it's shaping up to be, but Calanthe is my queen. I love her. She crushed in The Witcher. She's doing pretty damn good so far with her scenes here.
Yeah. The Emperor Carino is just, like you said, a doormat. It's crazy. Like his conversation with Desmond, and Desmond's like, "Come on, dude, you don't got to pretend with me." And then it takes him like a little bit, and he's like, "Oh my god, did you do that?" And then he's like flustered. Yeah. He's like, "I didn't tell you to kill that guards." He told the guards to come in just because exactly what you're saying, moral standpoint. He's literally just trying to be like an emperor and not actually thinking about what's happening around him. It's all about how he looks to those around him, I guess. So yeah,
that's why I like his scenes, man. I'm so interested by how he reacts to things and does things because he's just a useful idiot. Everyone around him wants to use him in one way or another, and the balance of power shifted so hard in this episode where now he seems to be listening more to maybe his wife and Desmond versus episode 1 he was relying so much on Kasha. So he's just like the basketball, the puck or whatever, like that we're all just trying to pass between or get away from the other team so that we have it. He's the golden snitch almost, let's say, where it's just like we need to capture him to have the power. And it's just really funny to
golden idiot. The golden idiot that everybody's just trying to sink their claws into and control.
It's great.
And
Mark Strong's a great actor. So
I was just going to say, don't hear what we're not saying, because Mark Strong is great. And I love him as Merlin in all the Kingsman movies. Like he was great in there. And he's probably in a million things. He's not a bad character. He's playing his part well, I think.
Yeah. And this is such a side random thing, because when we get to the scene that happens, we'll talk more, I'm sure, about Kieran Atreides, but like he is almost exactly who Constantine is. like he just doesn't really see it. Like Constantine is like he gets mad at Constantine for doing stupid things, and it's just I feel like the Emperor is also on that tier of not like uselessness, but just like is unable to see, the forest for the trees and all of that stuff. So I just thought that was an interesting thing, is that Constantine seems more like him than he seems like the Empress. So maybe that pisses him off even more.
That was just a professional transition to our next scene here with Constantine and his bang, which is definitely Paul's sexiest scene, because this scene was just these
Softcore
two.
porn.
Yeah, right. Like, and
Yeah.
he instantly just gets mesmerized and just starts gossiping house secrets right to her after the hookup. Which I'm surprised that came back like to play within like 5 minutes of real screen time. But either way, I don't think anybody actually trusted the Richese
No.
daughter, right? Like she was just going to
No.
be somebody that was there. He seems like an
Part of
idiot though.
me,
Constantine needs to
yeah,
learn some political savvy.
part of me was starting to feel like she was gonna be a sister, and what was gonna be the level of the breeding program that we saw in the movies.
Of marry those two instead.
Yeah, where it was like, give me your seed and we'll create like our family bloodlines will create a kid, and that'll just continue our
And
ability to create
it
these
probably would have been that if the sisters didn't exist, because they care about getting a
Yeah.
sister on the throne. But if it was just about the bloodlines, that would make a bunch of sense to have them be next man up.
Yeah. She
Could
fits the description. Like if there's if the sisterhood's hiring, this chick's qualified.
I think she's too old to learn the ways, I think.
well, not
She
even
knows some ways.
Yeah.
he knows some ways. Not
That's
even the sisterhood aspect of it, but could that still be a thing? Like, if Constantine did get her pregnant, like the Richese and Carino households would end up having some type of union after all, or would that just be like, yeah, that's a bastard. Like, fuck that. That's gonna bring shame to our great house name.
It's a good question.
Tough. I'm not, because I feel like we talked about it in episode 1, 2. We're not confident or really sure what society's view is on a bastard. Is a bastard a concept in this? Because I feel like they mentioned that he's older than Nez, but he's not in line for the throne because his mom isn't the Empress.
Duke
So-
Richese actually called him your bastard. Already
yeah.
let it leak. So he said it kind of as like a derogatory term, when the truth came out and everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I just think I need more convincing, let's say, quote unquote convincing, from Constantine. At least I hope
Constantine's
so.
Hairless body. She had more hair than he did. That was crazy.
I just hope that he's more than just like the dumb prince that bangs chicks.
Well, I
You
originally
hope
thought he
he's-
was going to be like scheming, but at least he's not going that way. He's too dumb. It seems like he's too dumb to like have some
Yeah.
actual political scheming going on.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
we get a little
Tyrion-
bit of it later on, but he feels like he has this potential. Maybe he's obviously jaded in some way by like how his life's gone and how he's treated. So I hope, like, I want more from him. There's going to be a scene where he does something where he's like, I want to be someone of consequence, and does something, and will it work out? Who could say?
I was gonna make a comparison to Tyrion, but it's terrible now that I think about it, because Constantine's like a pretty boy who gets chicks, just by his looks and his name, and Tyrion like literally is smart and has to bang prostitutes.
opposite.
He's more like Jamie without the actual fighting prowess.
There was
Well,
something
you
in
don't
there.
know
I was
that yet.
trying to, trying
that's
to
true.
find.
Okay, so let's take these next couple of scenes. So what I have here is after Valia arrives on planet, there's a couple of things that happen. We have the initial court meeting between the Duke and the Emperor. Nothing exceptional really happens here. They're both just like kind of arguing until Valia walks in, relays the message about Kasha, who says like was killed in basically the same way that Pruitt was. We kind of learned that all out here, but then we're going to get to the main court scene later too, but we also have Valia going directly to Nez to just talk her through this whole thing, because she was actually genuinely close with Kasha. And then you get to see some of Nez's training paying off, because she has been somewhat trained in the arts of like the sisterhood. So she has some of that biological full control, which is cool. And then that leads right into the Desmond interrogation by Valia. So that's like 3 or 4 scenes. They're all pretty quick, but there's something to talk about. So whatever you want to bring up first.
First thing right off the bat, the sign language hand signals between the sisters would be the most useful thing ever.
Oh
With,
yeah,
with two little flicks of the hand, she's like, remove them, get the Duke Cheze out of here now, so I can, go up and talk to the Emperor.
maiden
Uh,
hand talk.
they could get so much accomplished between being able to tell who's lying and telling the truth and doing that. It's like the ultimate uh what's the secret language, I guess. I don't know. There's a better word for
It worked. I understood what you said.
Mhm.
I thought this scene did a generally good job of showing the respect that the Redmond mother gets, or no, Mother Superior rather. I just, it was quite obvious that Richese's truthsayer slash sister is more than comfortable letting him yell at the Emperor and like dig a hole in. But then like when the Mother Superior comes up and she gets the order, she then says like, let's not act like this. Like the Mother Superior's here. It's almost that like they're really banning this idea that she is almost the one to be respected more than the Emperor himself.
Well,
Yeah, that
late
tracks.
later on, when Valia meets with the other sister on the boat, it does seem like they want chaos. They hold up these great houses, but they also want rebellion to keep those houses in check. So at one point, I'm sure that the sisterhood kind of enjoys um the friction between Richeze and Carino. I mean, I feel like that's
Well, they
part of
they
the
do.
yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like the reveal a little bit later. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a careful
Yeah.
balance
So
to play though.
I was just gonna say, I understand why the one sister, Richeze's sister, would just sit there and let her Duke freak out because that's what she wants.
Hmm.
That's what I was just trying to get to. And then
Yeah.
Valia is just she walks in and everybody freaks out. And I love the fact that she's just like, you know what? I'm not gonna tell him we're coming. I think this would be better if we're unexpected. And
Yeah.
totally was. I can't plan for anything. He tries to lie right on the spot, doesn't work. Like, what are you doing? Come on, bro. You knew
Yeah,
that
but the
lie wasn't gonna go
Empress,
through. Yeah.
the Empress plays it perfectly, where she's just like, yeah, no, let's let her interrogate him and all that stuff. So I think
Mhm.
Valia definitely isn't unaware, I think, of the Empress's thoughts about the sisterhood in general, but it's pretty clear that Valia's intellectual rival in the Imperium and in House Carino is obviously the Empress.
Yeah.
But the
And
Empress also played it off so well, like you're saying, because she said, like, "Oh, it's not every day the Mother Superior is here. Maybe we should listen to her." So, just
Yeah,
perfect.
but we know, yeah, that she hates the sisterhood, basically.
Yeah.
let's take it to that interrogation scene where after Valia like talks to Nez. I don't know if there's anything you want to bring up there, but the interrogation scene, we do get some things here. I thought it was very interesting how Desmond reacted to the Emperor in episode 1 when they were sitting outside alone by each other and talking about like the wedding itself. And the Emperor almost offhandedly said, like, I'll become faithful if like this happens. And I didn't realize how important religion and faith was going to be to Desmond's character, but that seems to be like the most guiding thing here, right? Where he is going to be led by this faith of whatever he thinks is right for the Emperor. And he also says here that he basically lost his eye and was given a new one by Shai Hulad, which gave him these abilities. So hopefully they don't break their rule about no magic, and that does end up getting explained. But I think that goes back to our conversation, Kyle, where I don't know if he was actually eaten. Maybe there was just some weird thing here because somebody was pointing out that it looks like the worm dives right in front of him, but you can't really tell clearly from the video. But either way, the worm did something, and I just can't reconcile how that's gonna play in the long term. And then what abilities was he actually given, and how was he given these abilities? Are we gonna see a flashback scene of what really happened to him? Because this dude is OP. He can resist Reverend Mothers. He can burn you alive just by touching his face. Like it seems that he's just like the definition of OP in this current world right now. But he does like admit to killing Kasha on the spot too, which I didn't think they were gonna give us that information because they didn't really clarify how he could kill her from across the galaxy. And even when he admits it, the Emperor later says, "Well, how could he do that? Like, give me proof." Even though he's saying he freaking did it, but
Yeah.
who knows? There's a lot to talk about there. But I think like Desmond's character is starting to take shape, and I just think he's the best character in the show so far. Like at least the most entertaining when he's on screen.
I thought, and maybe they're unreliable, the characters in the show themselves, but it seemed, did the Emperor not say that he saw him get swallowed in the surveillance?
Yeah.
Did he
I feel
use
like the
that
Emperor said,
word?
because I want to say he says swallow, because then the Empress is like, she even mentioned Shai Hulud, which I thought was interesting that she would say that, but I don't know. I just thought that he had confirmed it, but maybe I was hearing what I wanted to hear.
But
I-
it's irrelevant
he said there
because
was-
if he died,
Yeah. Yeah, I
How-
know, but
how-
it matters to me.
no, I know. I mean, it
I'm
is
just
relevant,
like-
but I'm just saying it doesn't explain anything.
Oh yeah, I would agree.
Luke, to go back to your, hopefully there is no magic power and it's explained. During this interrogation, Desmond says, I saw Yanez's corruption and like I see the blood trailing your every step. And she's like,
Mhm.
Valia is like, see? Like question mark? Like, what do you mean see? And that's when she does like the polygraph test, truth sayer ability. So that's when he goes on to say, yeah, Shahulu took my eye and granted me. So I'm also very curious because how the hell does Desmond know the future? Is it not actually see? Is it hear? Is he getting his own whispers from like Shahulu?
Well, we do know
interesting.
that obviously Paul Atreides can see the future when he's like gorging down spice and he's on Arrakis and stuff like that. So there is some level of connection there that prescience, I think is what it's can be linked here because if it is a literal eye from Arrakis, that's going to be spice infected. I don't even know if it
Mhm.
lasts that long, but I'm just trying to grasp at straws of what I know about Dune, and there's pieces there. I just can't connect it all because we don't know from the movies and
Yeah.
from the show lore yet. Like there's just not enough
The-
given to us of what could be
The
possible.
blue eyes thing is really throwing me off because like we're thinking, oh, this dude doesn't have blue eyes, so obviously he's never touched spice. But like Desmond was on Arrakis, right? So like he was around all that spice, so maybe he should have blue eyes, but he doesn't. Like, is that what?
I think it's like prolonged exposure,
Yeah.
so you can
Okay,
do it
so
and not like actually turn your eyes don't have to turn blue.
I guess I was getting more into, if he does have that ability to see the future that Paul Atreides does by consuming spice, he doesn't have the blue eyes, so it would be something different or adjacent to that.
It's
just
definitely different
yeah.
because he was like touching his face to activate the ability or at least turn it off in the later scene. So like there's gonna be
Yeah.
I don't know
something
if that was.
either what?
I guess my 2 cents here is I took the eye thing as more of like a metaphorical, like your third eye, like it opened his
Really?
eye and like it gave him like essentially like granted this ability to him
That
more than like
could
literally
work.
replaced an eyeball in his head.
I was taking it literal for a couple reasons. Like one being he ends up literally touching his eye,
Yeah.
like his face when he activates the ability. Could be a coincidence. But also, does he not have like a little bit of like a weird, like off-centered speck in his eye? It could just be the actor or something. But I
Yeah.
thought that was like an actual way to show that it was like an enhancement almost. And that could
No,
link
yeah.
back to, is this like a partially a thinking machine / AI like enhancement and there's something there, or is it like he's not human anymore and it's a different species that was like resurrected on Arrakis? I have so
That
many
would
questions in my head.
that would explain why the voice didn't work on him at the end. If he's not human or he's
Biological,
something else.
right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That's
Then-
interesting. Yeah. Yeah, if he has
I
like
love
some
that.
level of maybe he is part human, modified to a point where he's really not as much anymore. So like it almost works. Like it works a little bit on him, but
I'm
not
in.
fully.
He's a
Yeah,
cyborg.
I
I'm totally
took
in. That's
the
in.
him touching more as like using it kind of hurts him a little bit. I wouldn't think he was like turning it on or off. I thought it was more like it was hurting his head. Essentially,
Okay.
that's
That's
just the
what
way
I
I
got.
interpreted it.
as well because when Pruitt was burning at the end of the first episode, he was doing the same thing, but it was only after a little bit, right? So you're saying if he uses that burning for a extended amount of time, there is some strain that he shows to us via the tensed face and grabbing the temple. So, man, there's just all these little. There's so many pieces, but so many damn questions. God.
Yeah, right. And let's just connect this to his next scene is when he repledges his loyalty to the Empress almost. Like it's just like a 2-second scene where she summons him again, realizing that she can use him as a weapon. Don't have to talk more about it if we don't want to, but that's because that literally plays out in the next. Okay, what do you want to say about that one?
We gotta shout us out because we brought that up last episode.
Saying that
we were like, dude, like their goals align real hard. How's that gonna happen?
Yeah.
Next episode.
Yeah.
Shout out us.
Okay.
I actually did have one legitimate comment on that being she asks him like, are you a prophet? She has this knowledge of Shai Hulud. She's kind of been the one source maybe of like the religious side of things, and that's just something I'm keeping an eye on. Maybe my third eye on is this like religion, occultism, that stuff, because he wasn't really denying it. Is he religious in some way? Like I've mentioned and called out a couple times, Luke, with the Emperor being like, I'll be religious if like I'll be a believer or whatever if this stuff happens. So like, is that gonna eventually play a role? We know that the Emperor is very easily swayed, it seems, and he might be the textbook person to target to believe in some type of fanaticism and that type of stuff. So we'll see.
Yeah, it's gonna make for interesting TV because I always love the faith aspect in fiction. I always think it has fun twists if it's done well. But okay, I have 3 more big scenes that we have to talk through here. Let us, just for the sake of following it in like climatic order, there is this scene where we have Valia meeting with another sister who she says are a random contact on the planet. And then this is what you were kind of hinting at earlier, Paul, where we basically find out, which shocked me. I'm dumb for not even like questioning that maybe all of this internal strife between the Emperor and the Duke is all just self-caused by the sisterhood who wanted to show a weakness for the Emperor to then crush it so that they can respread their influence and basically make the sisterhood even more strong and have more influence within the empire. And we get all that here. And the biggest reveal to me was that I don't remember if it happens earlier in the episode or not, but like basically Atreides is almost the head of the rebellion on the inside, which I think just makes for great TV. And I almost am rooting for the rebellion now because like Paul said earlier, like Team Atreides over anything. I don't care who the Emperor is. But that was like a cool reveal for me. And basically she says, all right, it's time to route Valia. Says it's time to basically route the whole spy cell there. And then basically just, better our position.
I'm glad we weren't going insane in episode 1 where we were like, that was a weird interaction at the bar. Like that was not nothing. Right. And then obviously didn't think it was this, but yeah, that was an interesting way to take it. Sorry, Paul, I stepped over you.
Just gonna say I'd be pissed if I was that sister and worked all this time getting this rebellion up, and Valia's like, "Yeah, we're gonna blow it up." But it was useful.
The job done.
Yeah, but there's got to be
Senpai noticed her.
Pieces. What was that?
I said Senpai noticed her. She got props at least.
She did get praise. She definitely did get praise. But so assume they blow it up, she's going to be thrown into, a different fashion or probably chill on Arrakis. We're never going to see her again. Definitely possible.
I think she'll be back. She has to be, for sure. I'm interested, like Luke's mentioning in the rebellion. I'm not shocked that this is now becoming a real faction. This is part of my maybe concern that we touched on slightly at the start, is that we got 6 episodes. Hopefully this isn't too much stuff to cover, although a lot of them overlap. That works, right? Sure. Overlap, there you go, that's the word. So there's a lot, like conclusions can happen at the same time simultaneously. I don't know why I had to define that, but so there's a ways around it. But I was like, oh, okay, like the rebellion itself is going to be big characters more than like
Mhm.
something that's happening almost off world this far into the season, being only 2 episodes. So we'll see. I need to know more about them. I'm curious. I took what they're saying as like, doesn't seem like they're mad necessarily at like the institution of the Imperium. They're almost just mad at the individuals in charge. You know, it seems like they want to like get rid of the heads of the great houses, not really get rid of like the setup itself. I just need more there. I'm not really sure.
Well, so we do meet the big players of the rebellion being, I think we're still saying the Fremen bartender, right? Well, I am. Is Paul, did you take that person as being Fremen because they were blue-eyed and they look like they could have been from Arrakis?
Yeah, definitely. I
Okay.
mean, I don't know.
Okay. I might ask a dumb question. Was that not Sister Michaela?
Wait, was that Sister
I
Michaela?
Yeah.
I think so.
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
getting a little
wow.
confused, but I think she's just everywhere,
Yeah. I think she just
and
swapped the little
like
hairstyle out.
she's
Interesting.
the
I
one in
didn't
the
pick up on that at
rebellion
all.
that opened the case of spice for
Mhm.
Horus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Wow, okay. That totally went over my head because wasn't she wearing the Bene Gesserit or the Sisterhood like cloak when she was talking
Yeah.
to Valia?
Should.
Either
Yeah.
way,
Yeah. I
that makes a ton
guess
of sense, but she would still be
that's
like an Arrakis-based sister though, or something, because she has
well,
such exposure to spice that she's blue.
maybe they don't know
Yeah.
she's a sister. Maybe she's literally in the sisterhood, just undercover, and she's an informant and not acting like a right hand to a ruler. She's just one of the rebels and in there to sow seeds of chaos.
No,
Yeah, I do
that's definitely
wonder.
what it is, right?
Yeah, I'd be curious to know how many sisters know about her. Is this a Valia pet project
Is
thing, which
this
would be
Lila's
interesting?
mother?
Like did Kasha know about Michaela? I'm curious because she says like I looked up to Kasha, you know, she had all the power of being able to sit next to the emperor while I sit in the shadows, and so that maybe is something we'll explore
Mhm.
in the
Yeah.
future. And then maybe if that comes out, although Tula was aware that they were doing shenanigans on Arrakis, Kasha was aware they were doing shenanigans on Arrakis, so I guess we'll see.
Yeah. And we do meet another player here. We get a name drop for Horus, who seems like he's like a soldier man on the what is it? Boots on the ground type of person that has a relationship with Kieran Atreides, who is a main player because he's on the direct inside, has access to the princess, or yeah, heir. I think we
Mhm.
should say heir, has access to the heir, but he's very against. Did he specifically say it's because of like the chokehold they have on Spice that's why he's putting his house on the line and that's why he wants to usurp the Carinos? That's essentially what
Yeah,
he said, right? Yeah, which
yeah,
makes sense. I am so freaking nervous for Kieran because he's clearly already found out, and Valia has plans to remove him because that's the first thing Michaela says is get rid of the man on the inside because he knows too much. And we also know that Kieran did just hand deliver to the rebels, so there's probably going to be one more power play here, basically a full mapping of the throne room, like with that weird tech that he used, which was pretty cool. So there's going to be a big moment here, and I am like, I don't want to say he's going to die because he's an Atreides. He can die, Kyle, because he did pass on his genes definitely to Nez. I'm still on team. He got her pregnant. That's going to play its own way out, maybe. But I definitely feel like Kieran's screwed next episode.
yeah. I think the eye of the Mother Superior is obviously on him. I just think he's too interesting of a chess piece for her to just wipe off the board. I think she'll lean on that. She'll do something about it that's not just like killing him. But yeah,
Oh,
he is not aware of. I think he has an idea of how much danger he's in. In terms of he's an active spy in the palace, but I don't. He obviously can't grasp the true nature of the danger that he's in.
Horace says to Kieran, "We need one final piece, and then we can strike against Carino." Uh,
Mm-hmm.
what do you think that final piece was? Do you think that final piece was Yanez? Like the
I'm thinking more practical, like
weapon?
like a bomb. Yeah,
Yeah.
something like that.
Well, either way, Kieran, that might be Kieran's next step. Go get that final piece. So hopefully he's not just killed off right away. Hopefully we get a little bit more of him.
What if
No.
the bombing of the palace is what ends up causing the emperor to have to relocate planets or something? That would be a cool little twist of why they don't stay here anymore. But either way, like I as far as we know, like we don't know how many Atreides are out there. There has to be a lot if they're a great house 10,000 years in the future. So he might not be like the end of the line, but to me, he feels safe until we meet other Atreides characters. I just don't think safe excludes like him getting tortured and everything next episode if the sisters decide to throw the whole rebellion under the bus after they come close to succeeding just to get back into the good graces of the emperor. He'll be the collateral damage that is gets like sacrifice, and then there's gonna be the whole does Nez love him thing I could see, and if she is
Yeah,
actually pregnant, that's gonna be a fun little plot line, but
that's
she might
almost
be the reason he lives or something.
yeah, I was that almost the meta reason where this show has no romance plot without him and
Mhm.
Nez. And not that it necessarily needs it, but feels like the story could benefit from that. You know, we get into
What about
maybe this
Constantine
is just a ham. Well, he's just banging people, you
That's
know, that's a
lust.
little different
That's
here. This whole like, this is maybe a transition into that kind of training scene that they have, but that felt very star-crossed lovers, Romeo and
tot-
Juliet-esque, you know, and I think that to just throw that away in one more episode, I think would be foolhardy, just for
I will.
what would essentially be shock value to me.
I will say that scene where Kieran and Inez go back to fighting, and at the very end, he goes in and she's like, "We can't." He says, "You're right. It would be bad for both of us," and then he
Mhm.
walks away. So that could, I mean, yeah, it could be bad. I'm your sword master, blah blah blah. But the way Inez kind of like paused a second and looked back, I think he gave away too much right there because he was like, "What do you mean it would be bad for both of us?" Right? Like, why is that? I know why it would be bad for me. Like, I don't know. It could just
Well, I
be,
guess
yeah, you're not supposed to bang the empress who's supposed to be promised towards somebody else. But
I think
I,
that's the easy interpretation. We know his what he's actually hiding, but I think it's
Mhm.
not crazy that she's, you know, you're not supposed to bang your boss's
He
daughter.
Like, I think he's totally using her
yeah,
from a rebellion perspective, but he is now catching feelings, which is why I
yeah,
think it was Michaela that says, like, "Watch yourself there. Like, it seems like you're getting a little too close," which
Yeah.
explains that weird eye contact moment in episode 1 where she was like, "Hey, like, we good here? Like, you're not falling too hard for her, right?" And that's obviously what the path forward looks like for them, where they
Yeah.
are gonna probably be into each other and there's gonna be some stuff there. That's probably how the Atreides line is gonna keep moving forward. But like I said, like I'm still on team pregnant. Paul, what do you think about that theory?
pregnant.
Yeah.
Definitely. Anytime anybody
Ooh.
bangs, that's definitely on the table, and
Yeah.
especially just kind of she like brings up her past in that story. When she was used as leverage. So maybe she has a kid, it goes on, the kid gets used as leverage because she says we're all
Mhm.
just pieces on the board to be played in the pursuit of power and spice. So
I
that could have
mean,
been a little bit of foreshadowing.
that could have been pulled from the rebellion's manifesto. You know what she says, like she's there knocking on the door of this, maybe let's call it this proletarian mindset that like the great houses and the emperor are hoarding resources and creating almost this artificial scarcity to have power, and like she recognizes that. It just feels odd. I don't
Mhm.
know what that's going to be about. That has to be a big thing. Like that conversation meant something. I He heard those words. I don't know. He didn't really give away what he thought about her saying it beyond like the I haven't heard that story before about the story behind it, but I don't know cuz like someone that really desperately wants to be in the sisterhood who then has this almost negative view of what she would call the game and how everyone's a chess piece feels interesting. I don't know. I don't know if it's
Mhm.
necessarily hypocritical. I'm just that really made me curious because I was like, okay, you're just kind of almost spouting the rebellion's talking points right now. Like, let's go a little further here, girl. Like, why do you want to be like you're the heir, you're the princess, like you'll have control after this? Like, are you using the sisterhood in a way like to get some type of to get the benefits of being like better biologically to then like create change in the Imperium? Like, what's your game here? I'm
It
curious.
it could have been that she was just like very self-aware and she's just like, yeah, I'm about to step up into the seat of power, but I know it's just a seat of power for now, and somebody else is coming for this because it is just I'm on the top spot on the board now, but everybody on the board is going for that spot. So could be
Mhm.
she was self-aware. But that is interesting, the fact that she's sympathizing with like the rebellion basically by saying
Yeah.
that.
I think he's gonna make the misstep of like he's gonna think about that and be like, oh, like we could get her on the cause, like we don't have to kill anyone, like the air like agrees with us, like we can change it from the inside, man, like we can
Mhm.
do it. And they're gonna be like, no, bro, that's your penis talking. Like we gotta bomb these motherfuckers back to smithereens,
Yeah.
essentially.
Another
Last
good
statement on
transition.
that.
Oh, go ahead. Bad
Sorry.
transition then.
Because you said bomb, Horace, when talking to Kieran, did say we have to announce this rebellion in a way it can't be ignored. And Kieran was talking about shedding blood. So exactly what you guys are saying. Like it's got to be like an attack or an assault or something.
Yeah.
And it kind of all culminates in this shift within the palace because we are now fully in like open, just we're going to use Desmond now, right? Like we have this whole confrontation, the final confrontation between the Duke and the Emperor about the heir, and he's getting a little too cocky, this Duke, when they basically just bring in their new toy here, and Desmond flexes that he has this ability that he used on Pruitt, which I think like right there confirming to this other house that like he killed your son. So I don't know why they would do this, even with the threat of Desmond having this ability. Like they have all the superior um fleet, right? Like they have what they need in order to control Arrakis, and they're kind of just big dick in it right now. And I don't think that's like
Yeah.
thinking long term enough, even though this is part of it looks like Natalia's plan, because she convinced the Emperor to basically help to incorporate Desmond in their plan. So I don't know how this is going to play out. I can't see why threatening him at face value and basically saying we killed your son is the move. Did I miss like a subtext here? What was the purpose?
I was very confused as well because at the very end, Karina's just like, "Go home. We'll pretend this never
Right.
happened." And I'm
Like they
like,
need
how
Yeah.
him.
does that not sow seeds of revenge at one point?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's what question I wrote down in my notes is like, is Duke Richese now going to be like pushed towards the rebellion in any way? Is this going to be like
Yeah.
another like a Great House rebellion? Then we have like a soldier, more like proletariat worker level rebellion on top of the sisterhood, and then with Desmond and the Emperor and the Empress. Like it's a lot of factions, man. We got 4 episodes.
I think this was a misstep by the Emperor and the Empress. Like I don't know how this could work out positively for them.
Yeah, I feel like you should just kill him.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
Just you're the
I don't
emperor.
know.
Just take his. I mean, again, I don't know essentially how all of the Landsrad like Senate stuff works, but like kill him and take his assets, dude. They're in orbit around the planet. Just take them over.
Right. And
Swing
like
that dong around.
they then immediately after this scene have the confrontation with Desmond and Valia, who now they cut off the sisterhood. She and
Yeah.
Desmond's like, "You're done here. You can't even use your voice to control me." What are they doing? I have no idea, but I also don't root for the Carino, so I don't care. This seems like it's going great for the Atreides.
I fucking love that scene where Valia and Desmond have their first interaction without Desmond being chained up in
Mhm.
the suspension cells. She walks in and that whispering happens again right as she's about to meet Desmond. So I was like, "What is that?" I took another note of it, and just their back and forth. They're both so intelligent. He knows what the sisterhood are doing. He's talked about how we're being controlled in the first episode when he was talking to Pruitt. He's like, doing all this, and then we learn we're still being controlled just by other forces, but that's why I'm here to put a stop to it. So I love that he knows everything about, well, not everything. He knows so much about the sisterhood, and Valia knows nothing about him. And
Mhm.
she is shook because that is her job, to know everything, to know the truth, to know everybody's whereabouts on every planet. And she used the voice on this fucking dude. and he just smirks and lowers the blade. And her reaction was terrified. She was flustered. She didn't know what to do. She broke her hard exterior for the first time in the entire show. I
Mhm.
absolutely love this scene.
But why did he not kill her? Like,
Yeah.
if you're willing to kill or basically make mortal enemies out of another great house, like, what's the difference if you're gonna do it with the sisterhood?
I just
Maybe I'm underestimating how much influence they have right now in the political landscape, but
Could just
shouldn't
trigger
the
war.
Richeses also have almost equal importance if they're the pathway to controlling the spice? It's just a little confusing. I don't think they properly contextualize all the stakes with these different players yet, and it might get more and more obvious, but to me,
Mhm.
like, that's open war against the sisterhood is what they just did right there. So,
Yeah, but it's
I
why not
I
kill
guess
Valia?
I really
killing
think that
her would
killing her is open war. This is like the great houses don't know this is happening, but if she dies, then that all that lid is truly opened. I almost feel like he's not like giving her the rope to do what she would with it. It is this power play too, and it's almost like maybe he's reading her in a way that like this is going to send her into a spiral. Like let her make the mistakes, like let her
But
think too much about all of it, like all that stuff.
now I'm thinking in like this is just off the top, which could really work is because of this hard cut from Desmond and the Sisterhood and the Emperor and all that stuff. Like the Sisterhood should just use the rebellion and just say, "All right, time to go now. Like let's use this." And why can't Atreides and Michaela work together with the actual Sisterhood? Like I feel like that's their pathway in now. If they have no more control
Yeah.
in the palace room because they're getting
Okay.
kicked out, it
Yeah.
looks like.
Yeah.
So that
And then
works,
Nez and Atreides just live happily ever after, and then we
dude.
end on the
Yeah.
happiest, most positive note ever with a little baby being born, and they name him Paul. That's
This
it. All
could
right, we
work.
just wrote the show. Yeah.
I think we're good. I think we're good. It just means Desmond's the bad guy. Everybody else is the good guy.
Yeah, I guess that would be somewhat of that outcome.
But I love Desmond.
He's awesome.
I don't know. There's something. I want it almost to not be as simple as he's just this loyal soldier. There was like a little bit of a moment where when she says like where are you from, and he says what does he say, Balud, whatever the
Yeah.
planet is,
About Luke.
and he kind of like thinks about it. That was one time he looked a little shook, and that initially for me was like, oh, he's obviously the Gola. Like, is that like him like trying to remember the memories that were put into him, but he actually doesn't have the memories because they're not his. But I don't think that's actually the truth. But
It
I
could be the
think there's
cyborg theory though, where he's
yeah,
kind of forgetting what part of him's human versus thinking machine, which could work
yeah,
too.
yeah. I don't
I
know,
mean, that
and I did some googling as well on that planet, and it looks like potentially an ancestor of Kasha's like enslaved the planet
Okay.
like
That's crazy
before
lore.
the stuff I think like maybe during or before the machine wars the colony was devastated by Iblis Ginjo to use for organ farms.
Okay. Wow.
So yeah, and they took captives alive for slaves, killed a handful of citizens for good measure, all of those things, so that it looked like it would be a thinking machine attack. So maybe there is more of this personal crusade vendetta. I don't know. I'm just grasping at straws there. I'm just
No, I
trying
like it. It's worth bringing up.
to think
Definitely.
of a
there's
way maybe
something
it's
there.
not as cut and dry as just like I am a loyal robotic soldier of the Imperium.
Well, to touch on that, one of the last things he says when Valia asks, "What do you want?" He says, "I want what's best for the Imperium," which he said while he was chained up, and Valia was said, he's telling the truth, but what he claims there's something wrong with it, and then he went on to say at the very end, "I want what's best for the Imperium, and that is to wipe out every trace of you and your sisters." So if he's saying, "I just want what's best for the Imperium, I just want what's best for the Imperium, I work for the Imperium," that's technically telling the truth. But then the second truth behind it is what benefits the Imperium is wiping out all of the sisters. So it could 100% just be a vendetta. And he realizes how much power the sisterhood has. I keep wanting to call it Bene Gesserit. I got to pull myself back. Um,
Same.
so that could definitely be it. And why he didn't kill her, maybe he needs their powers, something, some info to fully take them down, or maybe he's just
Yeah.
going to let
I
them take themselves down from the inside.
Yeah, I'm almost leaning into this. Like, it's not as simple as just killing her. Like, that doesn't actually destroy the sisterhood. You know, they have all the acolytes, all of the sisters that are actively in service of the great houses. Like, he almost needs to tarnish their reputation as an institution versus just cutting off the head of the snake. You know, you need to
Okay.
show people that the snake's poisonous, not just kill it or take the head off of it, you know, something like that.
Yeah. You have to let
Perfect.
the people think it was their idea to push out the sisterhood when
Yeah.
really, you were the one forcing them.
I like it all, man. I think we have a bunch of guesses on the board. That was I'm like when we come back for episode 3, we're either going to be so
Yeah.
spot on or just be like, wow, we should just throw out podcast episode 2. But I
I
mean,
mean, in that
I'm
vein, I
still
got
hyped
another one.
though. Yeah, go for it.
So this is going to be a season long one. We're going to put it on the board. I think that Kieran Atreides is essentially going to reenact that exact scene that Nez talked about where she was like getting kidnapped and Constantine couldn't stop it. But I think this time, I think he's going to kill Constantine. And
That
that's
is
gonna, like, you know, because we get like the first scene where we get Kieran is Constantine walks into the room and he jokes like unhand her, you know. And so I think that like those two scenes combined could be planting the seed for that actually to happen, and I think that would be a really emotional conclusion to Constantine's character, as well as we get to actually see him being selfless, caring about his sister, things like that. So I'm putting that one on the board.
okay.
Kieran's
So you
gonna kill
think Atreides
Constantine.
kill? Okay, Kieran's going to kill Constantine. Okay, I got you.
Yeah.
Any parting guesses, Paul, for anything?
I want to say something dumb like
Ooh.
I hope we get another character using the voice, but I don't know if we will because I mean Valia created it, right? And
Same seems
Paul
like it. Yeah.
and Paul Atreides only was able to use it because his mother was part of the Bene Gesserit.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, how does that get passed on? I guess is what I'm trying to figure out. Or can anybody do it because she just taught herself?
It's the masterful like biological control over your vocal cords to hit a pitch that makes you more susceptible to basically hypnosis, but to an extreme level. So I think it's teachable, but also you probably need to have some sort of internal genetic um like what's the word I'm looking for? Like genetic when you're like
Predisposition.
inclined, yes, predisposition, yeah, towards it. But who knows? How about this? I'll give you one more guess, Paul, here, or one more thing to put on the board. Do you think we will step foot on planet Arrakis this season?
Not just for surveillance camera. I
Yeah,
want to
yeah, like
say
actual Dune.
I gotta say yes, right? Because that's Dune. That's maybe me more hoping than
Mhm.
actually, but I feel like with the introduction of the sister that was actually like based out of Arrakis, hopefully we see that rebellion cell. Yeah, give me a worm. Give me a
I
fucking
agree.
worm.
All right, are we good, guys? I think that's gonna do it, right?
So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking through my notes. I think we covered everything I wanted to cover and all of that stuff. I got the things on the board that I want on the board. So
Mm-hmm. Cool. All
we
right,
shall see.
everybody. That is going to be episode 2 of Dune Prophecy titled Two Wolves. If you like what you heard, just, follow us on everything. We are doing so many other things outside of Dune Prophecy. So if you found us through the search function or just random social media pages, we do have a main page. It is Bingetown TV. It has everything we do, including Dune Prophecy. But right now, we just got finished covering MGM Plus's From. We just wrapped up Netflix's Arcane. That show is a banger. Go watch that if you haven't. And then we're in the process of covering Silo on Apple TV, one of the best sci-fi shows going on right now. Coming up, though, we will be covering Dexter Original Sin. Severance is coming up as well. A couple things that are going to be happening early in 2025. So just keep Bingetown TV in mind. We're always cranking out content. Everything you can find centralized on bingetowntv.com. So one more time, we are Bingetown TV, and thank you so much for listening.